Yeah, good evening, everyone. So, last session we discussed about TypeScript data types, right? We are learning about data types. So, in the TypeScript data types, we learned about some basic things. TypeScript data types. We started primitive types. Primitive types. In primitive types, we have a number, another one string. These two, and the third one is Boolean. Boolean. These three things we learned. Already we discussed about what is a string, number, and Boolean. Same as JavaScript types, but what is advantage here is they are strongly typed, and we learned one more concept, union of types. We discussed union of types. Union of types means so you can define multiple types. Every variable can handle multiple types. Union of types we learned. One more topic we discussed, if you remembered, type inference. What is type inference? What is type inference? We discussed it, right? Type inference is what? Type inference, it will determine the variable data type based on the value initialized. If you initialize the value, based on the value initialized, it will determine the data type. That is actually type inference, right? Next, in data types, we have another important. So that is null type and another undefined type. We will see these two. So we have number, string, Boolean. Boolean already we know. String we discussed, double quotes, single quotes. Another one is backticks. What is null type and undefined type? Null and undefined type. What is difference between null and undefined is actually simple concept I will show in the design. For example, suppose we are using in index.ts file, I am writing actually in JavaScript we have a prompt. In JavaScript we have a prompt. What is the purpose of this prompt is, prompt is going to show a pop-up and ask you to input some value. In JavaScript, prompt is for displaying a pop-up and asking input for value. Actually, I will show how this prompt works in JavaScript generally. So we have prompt, enter name. Usually, this is how a prompt looks like. Prompt pops up like this. And you can input some value. Here, there are so many consequences now. Actually, if I click cancel, then what will happen is the memory allocated for this prompt is not being utilized because you just canceled. Then what it thinks that you are not supplying any value dynamically into it. If you are not supplying any value dynamically into it, it will return null. Suppose you declared a variable, you are declaring a variable and you are not supplying any value into that variable dynamically, at the runtime, then it is called as, it is referred as null. So null means there is no value supplied at the runtime of application. At the runtime of application, if value is not supplied, then it will return null. At compile time, if value is not supplied, it will return undefined. It will return undefined. So difference between null and undefined. Null means value not supplied at the time of runtime. That means here, so the null type actually, first point is, it is used to verify value during runtime of application. It is used to verify the value during runtime of application. If value is not supplied, then into where it is not supplied into variable, not supplied into variable, then it returns, actually it returns null. It will return null. If value is not supplied into a variable, then it is going to return null. I will show you example here now. Generally, see, I will put var some x and I will print it, document.write x, the value of x. Observe carefully here. Actually, I am opening this prompt. I am not supplying any value. Without supplying the value, I clicked OK. If I click OK, then it considers as a value blank. It is not null. Even blank is also a value. It will represent as blank. So there is no problem in that. That means there is no message, nothing is there. But observe here, when I click cancel, cancel means a variable is present, into the variable value is not supplied. If value is not supplied into variable, then at the runtime, it will return null. You can see it returns null. So if anybody asked you, what is difference between empty and null? Empty and null both are not same. Empty means there is a blank value. Empty means blank. So, but null means there is no value at all. There is no value at all. At what time there is no value? At runtime, there is no value supplied. If at runtime there is no value supplied, you will get a null. So, in TypeScript, what you have to do is, whenever you are declaring a variable, and you think that into the variable you will supply value dynamically, not statically. Dynamically means at runtime. Then you have to mark it as username, I am expecting string. But if there is no value supplied into it, so if it is cancelled, then it is expecting another one, or we have to define null. That means it is expecting string or null. And from where you are taking the value? I am taking the value from a prompt. From a prompt, I am saying enter message, enter name, something like this. If I don't define null, that means I am expecting only string, then it shows an error. It says that you are saying string, but you are using a dynamic element. Prompt is a dynamic element. That means it supplies value into the variable dynamically. Now, TypeScript understands that you are trying dynamic input. Then its doubt is, if dynamically value is not supplied, what should I do? Right? If dynamically value is not supplied, what should I do? That is the reason it is saying that prompt, whatever you enter in prompt, it will come in string. Okay. If not entered, what should happen? That means you need to configure what should happen if the value is not supplied into it. So what should happen if value is not supplied into it? That means if value is not supplied, we are expecting one more. What is it? We will use union of type. We will put it as what? Null. Then we will write a condition. We will write a condition. If username is equal to what type? Null type. If username is null, that means they have cancelled. No value is entered into it. Then we will print some message. We will print a message document.write. We will say, so you cancelled. This message should come. Otherwise, what should happen? Document.write, it will print output saying that, so hello, and whatever the username entered, that means we will use that username. Understood? So what is null type? Null type is to verify whether the value is supplied into a variable during the runtime or not. If you are expecting a value during the runtime of application, then what you have to do? You have to define null. So if you are expecting a value at compile time only, then you don't need to use null. I will tell you alternative for that, what we have to define. So when should I use null type? To verify value during runtime of application. If value is not supplied into a variable, then it returns null. So syntactically, how do we define? So we are configuring some variable name, some username, and it is expecting a string type. But if you directly supply value into it, that is okay. There is no problem. Only string is enough. So you see, let username, you defined a string type. You are not supplying anything. Empty string. This is also okay. Because empty string is also a value. It is a blank value. So that is also okay. No problem. But if you define some username as a string type and you are trying to supply value into it dynamically by using some another element, then this is invalid. Why it is invalid? Because dynamically you are asking to supply value, and if dynamically value is not supplied, then what should happen? You have to tell. That is the reason. What is the correct way of representing this? You have to define username, what type, string type, and what? Null. And if you are expecting from the prompt enter name, this is how we have to define. This is invalid and this is valid. All others are valid. That means the first line is valid. So because you are supplying some value, second line is also valid because even empty is also a string. But if it is not supplied dynamically, then it returns null. It is compulsory. Suppose you are not defining here. Suppose you are not defining this null, then obviously you saw it shows an error. And see the error here, it says that it should be string or null. It should be string or null because it can understand that dynamically value is supplied. Then you have to configure string or null. This is very important. You have to remember everywhere when you are using Angular. In Angular, when you are dealing with language, TypeScript is the language. Every line you have to write through TypeScript. In Angular, wherever you are expecting input dynamically, then you have to declare a variable which can accept string or null, which can accept number or null, which can accept Boolean or null. Depending on data type, what data type it is. It's not like only string or null. It can be number or null, string or null, or Boolean or null. So null is very important, whether the value is coming or not. I cannot test this program in console now. Why I cannot test this program in console? Because we are using document methods. If you are using document methods in a program, you have to test it in HTML only. So what you have to do? First transcompile this into JavaScript. How to transcompile into JavaScript? We will use So TSC, what is it? Index.ts. It is transcompiled into JavaScript. After transcompiled into JavaScript, link the JavaScript to your page. Suppose we have an index page. In that index page, we will link that index.js. We will keep this empty. There is nothing required here, body load and all. I will just keep everything empty, ordinary. And let's run this page and see. Open with live server and you can see it will ask a prompt. And see, I click on cancel. When I click on cancel, it is going to return null. And you are verifying that null. It shows cancel. Because we are verifying that here. We are verifying that if it is null, what should happen? It should display message you cancel. So if you clicked OK, that means you clicked some name and you clicked OK, then it will display that hello job. And you clicked OK without entering anything. Is it null? You clicked OK without entering anything. Is it null? It is not null. It is supplying value, but that is blank. Then it will say hello empty. It is not returning null. So null is returned only when you cancelled a value. Value is not supplied into it. Then it is null. This is basically one important you have to know. So I will keep this example here. This is index.ts. In index.ts, this is the code. I will upload into our classroom. And what we have to do, transcompile tsc index.ts and we have to link to index.html. I will give that index.html code also here. Just we need to link that index.html. So because if you are using document methods, you have to test through dynamic HTML. Otherwise, you can directly test in the console, right? This is one option. What is that? Null type. So in the data types, we have a number, we have a string, we have a Boolean, another one, null type. Next important is another in the primitive types. In the primitive types, we have undefined types. We have undefined types. In the primitive types, we have another undefined types. Undefined type. How do we configure undefined type and how do we specify the undefined type? Let's see. For example, see here, we are declaring some variables here. Let's configure some variables here. So I will declare a variable let, some name. It is a string type. Okay. And into this, we are supplying some value. Okay, let's create another variable price. And price I am expecting as a number, but that number is not supplied now. The number is not supplied into it now. Dynamically also we are not supplying. That number will be added, price will be added according to situation. When situation satisfies, later we will add price. For example, you see, generally bikes, cars, websites will be there. You open the websites and they will say that, do you want to see the cost? Then you click and enter contact details. Then only we will show the price. Until that moment, it is not displayed to you. That means you open, login, enter the contact details, then define, then it will show the price. That means we will later apply value into it and display to you. Initially, it is nothing supplied. Now I am trying to print console.log. We will print name is equal to, we learned binding expression. We will access name /n, next line, price is equal to, and price. If price is not supplied, if it is not supplied, it will show an error. It says that there is no value inside to print. It is already showing that error. There is no value. That means Are we expecting the value dynamically to input? We are not expecting value dynamically to input. Statically, we will put a value later. That means we defined only price. We defined only price. The value is not supplied. If value is not supplied, what it is going to return? Observe carefully. It is going to return. So it says there is a variable price and you are used before being assigned. There is no value assigned. If there is no value assigned into it, then you can use a union and you can say undefined. You can put undefined. Now there is no problem in price. Now you can see there is no problem in price. If I don't use undefined, then it is saying that there is no value. What is the meaning of undefined? Undefined is saying that we are not currently supplying value, later we will supply. That is undefined. Later we are going to supply value into it. So developers needs to mention that these values are not for now, later to be implemented. Then what we do, we mark this as what type? Undefined type. When I mark this undefined, this is okay. Now do you know what price will be printed? What price will be printed? There is no value now. If there is no value, price will be printed as undefined. It will say that price is undefined. That means not mentioned. Undefined means it is not mentioned. Why you haven't mentioned? That is another person's responsibility in my team. He will do the implementation of price. It is not my responsibility. Then I kept it as undefined. Later, whenever they want, they can define price. Then if you try to print, then it will print undefined. Let's run this and see. So I will run that and see here. Let's open. Just for your understanding sake, I will open in a new window this location CMD. Yeah. Here TSC index.ts. So I'm just using node index.js and you can see it says undefined. It's not an error. It is not an error. It is simply saying that it is not yet defined. Now suppose if you want to check is it defined or not, you can try like this. What you can do is you can put a simple condition here, like if price is equal to undefined, you can verify. If price is equal to undefined, don't print price. Don't print price. Print only name. That means here we will use console.log. What to print? Only name. Only name is printed. Otherwise, you can print both name and price. If not undefined. Understood? We are keeping undefined. Undefined means the value will be later assigned into it. Later assigned. For example, can I try null for this? Because value is not supplied now. Can I try null for this? You cannot try null for this. Why you cannot try null? Null is only when you are dynamically supplying value into it. If you don't know at all about the value, later you have to assign the value, then it is not null. It is what? Undefined. It is undefined. Then undefined, if it is undefined, then don't print that price. Only print name. If it is defined, then you have to print both name and price. So now you see here, let's compile. So tsc index.ts and compile the program node index.js. It is going to print only name. So later, suppose if I supplied some value into price, price is equal to some 46,000. I supplied some value into price. Then see what happens now. Again compile and run this. And this time it is going to print both. It is not defined, don't print it. If it is defined, then print it. That means several references we have to declare and we will not use immediately. We will declare and we will use in later implementations because you are working in a project environment, everything is not your responsibility. You just build few things and move them to the next level. Those people will take care about the implementation of that. In such cases, we need to use these type of techniques, how to configure with undefined. So what is the meaning of undefined? What is undefined? It specifies that the value is not defined. The value is not defined into variable and will be defined later whenever required. That means it is marked for further implementation or further assignment. It is marked for further assignment. We are not assigning any value. Later value will be assigned. If you are marking any variable for later assignment of value, then you have to define by using undefined. That means you have to define like this. So I will put a syntax. Suppose let price is a variable, what type, number type, and you are not supplying any value. Then you are trying to print the price, console.log. So price is equal to the value of price. Then it will say invalid, right? It is invalid because there is nothing to print inside price. Why it is invalid? What is the error? It will say that not assigned. Understood? What error it will give? Not assigned. Because at MNC level, when you are attending Angular like interviews, so they will give you syntax and they will ask you what is the error for this. They will give you the syntax and they will say that what will be the error for this? Is it valid or error? If error, what error it is? That's the reason you should know the error status. For example, generally they ask like, if I write a program and there is no main method, what will be the error? If I write a program without a main method, main is mandatory, what will be the error? Entry point missing. It is not like main method is missing. The error will be entry point missing. If there is an error state saying that entry point missing, that means there is no main mentioned inside the program. That is why error codes and error names are very important at interview level. You need to know. That means if it is not defined, then it will say not assigned. Then what is the correct way of defining this? Let price, it is number or it is what? Undefined. If you define like this, then if I try to print it, console.log, if I try to print the price, what it is going to do? It is valid, but it will store what word it will store? Undefined. It will return undefined. It will store undefined. If you assign any value, it will take that value. So otherwise it will store undefined. This is not error. This is valid. But remember, when you are developing for real time, when you are finally publishing a project, there should not be any variable undefined. That means at development way, okay. But at production level, there should not be any undefined variable. Every variable must be defined. That means at development mode, it's okay. Because you are developing, somebody have to implement. But in production, there cannot be a variable with undefined. There must be every variable defined, every variable assigned, every variable initialized. There cannot be undefined. This undefined only for development. We have to use them. So these are all the types. So example, I will give this program. This is a simple example for that. Index.ts. Right, this is index.ts. Now you compile this from command line. So tsc index.ts and node index.js. So I hope you are not confused, because sometimes I am using in HTML page, sometimes I am using in command line situation. I told you, right? If any DOM methods we are using, then you have to test it in HTML. If DOM methods you are not using directly, you can test in the command line. In the command line, that depends on what methods you are using. Okay. Now this is all about the primitive types. Let's say syntax summary. What are the primitive types? So we have primitive types. In primitive types, we have number, and we have string, and we have Boolean, and we have null, and we have undefined. These are all the primitive types. So JavaScript primitive types, same as TypeScript primitive types, both are same. JavaScript primitive types are used by TypeScript, but additionally, how to define data type, how to restrict the data type, how to define union of types, how to configure nulls and undefined. What are non-primitive types? Generally, non-primitive types, they are mutable types. Mutable types. That means they can change the structure according to state and situation. Primitive types are immutable types. Immutable types means structure cannot change. They have a fixed structure. But non-primitive types are mutable. That means they can change the structure according to situation. That means there is no fixed range for values. That means value range changes according to state and situation. There is no fixed range for that. The value range changes according to state and situation. And what are the non-primitive types? TypeScript non-primitive types. Non-primitive types. What are the non-primitive types we have? One is array. Another one is object. We have an array, object, and we have map. These are called non-primitive types. In JavaScript, in TypeScript, both are same. Array type, object type, and map type. This comes under the category of non-primitive. Now let's see what these are, how they are different. What are the points about these types? Let's see. First important, you need to know array type. Right? We will see what is array type. Actually, if anybody asks the question, what is the purpose of array? What is the purpose of array? To store array types. What is the definition? Array means array is used collection of items. What is it? What is it? Similar type, huh? Yeah. Actually, yeah. Collection of types, values, same data type. Okay. Actually, arrays are used in computer programming to reduce overhead and complexity. That is the main purpose of array. If you say array is similar types of values, I can prove wrong every time. I can prove you wrong. If you say array is similar type, then I can prove you that wrong. For example, see here. Suppose see here, same type, similar type. Suppose I have values is an array. In that we have 10 and we have A, we have true. Are same type, huh? These are same type. These are not same type, and it is an array, and you can see that. So it is an array and it is not same type. It's working. That means if you think arrays are similar type of values, that is a wrong thinking. I will explain why. Why? We will discuss that, right? We will see that. So arrays are similar type in your technology. In your technology. Don't apply this to all computer programming technologies in the world. So how you have to learn is, you have to learn that in my Java, array is similar type. In my .NET, array is similar type. Don't say array is similar type, because it is wrong. Array is not similar type. Right? Your Java array is similar type. Your .NET array is similar type. In many computer programming languages, array is not similar type. If it is not similar type, I thought all these days that array is for same type values. I thought the use of array is to same type of values, to store same type of values. But now I am saying that it is not the use of array, that is the nature of array. So then what is the purpose of array in computer programming? Actually, I will give you a complete clarity why your technologies tell you in that way, right? We will see that here. Actually, general concept here you need to understand, arrays are used for reducing overhead and complexity. That is the main purpose of array. They will reduce complexity and they will reduce overhead. What does that means? I will show you. Actually, what is overhead, what is complexity, I will tell you. Actually, few years back, so data storage in a electronic device, means computers, tape recorders, everywhere, the data storage happens. Few years back, data storage happens in a magnetic tape. We have magnetic tape. You know magnetic tapes, right? I hope you have seen VCRs, tape recorders. A tape will be there, magnetic tape will be there. I am talking the situation about CDs, discs, right? And in this magnetic tape, actually, data is stored. In the magnet tape, data is stored in this format. Data is stored in this format. And what happens is, actually, there will be a simple read-write head. There will be a simple read-write head here. This head is pressed onto the tape. And now the tape moves from left to right. The tape moves from left to right. That means this head is going to read like this in an order. Am I right? Suppose I want to listen to the previous song, then I hope you know you have to rewind and listen. You know that? Have you used Walkman's, tape recorders idea? You have to rewind and listen to the song. That means already data is in a sequential order. Data is in a sequential order and it reads in this way. Problem started into electronic devices when disk came. That means when floppy, CD, hard disk came, then the problem started. It was not a problem earlier. What is problem is, actually, in a CD or floppy or hard disk, data is stored in a spiral tracks and sectors. I hope you know this. Data is stored in tracks and sectors. The spiral tracks and sectors. Data is stored in the tracks and sectors like this actually. Data is stored in tracks and sectors. What you don't know is in these tracks and sectors how it is stored. Actually, data is stored in tracks and sectors. In the tracks and sectors, how it is stored is, actually, first one will be like 1, second will be 2, third will be here. That means the data storage order will be like this. After that, After that, next one will be 4 here, will be 5, and will be 6. That means the order will be like this. It is not stored in a spiral way. It is not stored in a spiral way. It will be in a zigzag like this. That means I will show you. Actually, if you have seen hard disk, so I will show you here. Yeah. So if you have seen hard disk drive, this is actually internal part of hard disk drive. Hard disk looks like this actually. That is the internal part of hard disk, inside hard disk, right? Actual inside hard disk, if you observe, what happens is, this is called, this spindle is attached here, am I right? This is called actually, that is called as, that is read write head. That is actually read write arm. That is, we call it as arm, read write arm. And observe here, what happens is, this spindle, that means here you can observe here, the CD is attached to this spindle here. Now what happens actually, CD rotates round, am I right? CD rotates round, but that arm is the read write pin. It is going to read the data and write the data. It will be moving like this. Understood? It will be moving like this, like a viper. That means data is not stored in a spiral way. Spiral way means you have seen gramophones. You've seen gramophone record. Their data is stored in a spiral way. You put the pin outside, it will slowly go to the starting point and stop. Spiral. But CD, floppies, hard disks, they are stored like this. This is the way how data is stored inside them. Due to that, what happens now, this is actual how hard disk works inside. Due to that, what happens is, generally because of this, what happens, now suppose this place is empty. That place is empty. There is nothing stored. Actually, what happens, we have a read write pin. That means we have a head here. This head is going to move like this. Am I right? It is going to move like this. That means what it will do, it is going to store data here. So A, it is going to store data here, A, and it is going to store data B. And after that, it cannot go there because it is empty. Suppose already some data is stored here. Actually, why it will be empty, I will tell you. Previously, what happened? Previously, data stored up to 3. After that, it stopped. Then again, data AB. After that, it stopped. Next time, the read write head comes here. It will see that A is already filled. It will not go to the third part. It will go to the next one. Understood? Because already it sees that data is filled here. It will not go to this location. It will go to the next one. Then what happens? There is space, but you cannot use. We have space, but we cannot use. This is the common problem that occurs in all modern electronic devices that have storage. That means you have space, but you cannot utilize. It says memory full, but there is space. This problem is called overhead. We call this issue as overhead. Overhead means there is space, but you are unable to use it. That means just by storing some data randomly for few days, automatically your disk is saying full. So I hope you people know, if you are using Windows XP and lower versions earlier, in every computer, there will be an option called disk defragmenter. You know it? There will be an option called disk defragmenter in every computer. Do you know the purpose of this disk defragmenter? This disk defragmenter, it is used to move all used sectors one side, unused sectors another side. Then again space is adjusted. Then you can start storing the new data. Actually, few years back, I am talking about Windows XP and before, we have to do this regularly in our computers. In our computers, regularly, we have to run disk defragmentation. But in the current operating systems, it is already running every week in the background. That means in the latest operating system, it is scheduled. That means every few days, automatically disk defragment is running. You pause this for some time, for a few days. You will face space issues. You pause this automatic defragmentation for few days. Immediately you will start facing space issues. It will say that memory is full. You can't open apps. Then again you have to manually run this defragmentation. So what is the problem of disk, CD, floppy, hard disk? The major problem is overhead. And to overcome this overhead problem into computer programming languages, that means arrays are introduced into computer programming to reduce overhead. Are used to reduce overhead. How they will reduce overhead? Array can reduce overhead by storing values in sequential order. Arrays will reduce overhead by storing values in sequential order. They can store values in sequential order. If values are stored in a sequential order, there is no overhead problem. We can reduce overhead by storing values in a sequential order. Arrays allows to store data in a sequential order. So the purpose of array is not storing similar values. The purpose of array is to store values in a sequential order. By storing values in sequential order, what is the benefit? We can reduce overhead. What is overhead? Overhead is the issue that comes with the memory. Memory is available, but you cannot utilize. And very important, actually, array can store various types of values. Array can store various types of values, but your technologies have a problem. Your Java have a problem in allocating different types of memories in sequential order. That's the reason your Java restricted array to store only similar type values. Understood? Your .NET is unable to allocate different types of memory in sequential order. That's the reason it restricted for same type. That means the drawback of your technology, you are learning as a definition. Understood? That means you are saying array is similar type of values. That is problem in your technology. Only storing similar type of value is the problem in your technology. But very important, array can store various types of values. But what is the problem is, various technologies, few technologies restrict array for similar type of values. TypeScript allows various types. TypeScript array allows various types. Not only that, TypeScript can also restrict similar type. That's good. That means it have a perfect behavior of array. It can restrict for similar type. It will allow to handle various types. Your arrays cannot handle various types. That is the reason your technology have introduced another concept called collections. Right? Your technology have introduced another concept called collections because array have problem. If array have problem, you need alternative for that. That is why collections. And TypeScript doesn't need collections because array can work as both. That means that is why I told you TypeScript is more than what you know as OOP languages in other technologies. It is more than that. It is more high professional than that because it supports both techniques. It says, if you want, I can restrict array for same types. So because your Java is doing, your .NET is doing, okay, according to you, I can restrict you. But in any situation you want me to handle different types, I can handle that also. Another important, what you learn in general technologies is array size cannot be changed dynamically. Am I right? But array size can be changed dynamically. Array can change size dynamically. Your technology arrays are restricted. They can't change. But array size can change dynamically. Array size can change dynamically. Arrays can store various types of values. So your technology have some problems. That is the reason they restricted. So that is the reason in your brains it is fixed that array means similar types, because you belong to the technology. You learn in the technology way. You will not learn in an actual way. That means the technology way definition for array is Java arrays can store similar type. .NET arrays can store similar type, but not arrays can store similar type. Arrays can store both similar type and different. Array size can be changed dynamically. You see here, I am showing here, suppose I am declaring here new array, its size is 2. And into that we are supplying values. Values of 0 is equal to 10. Values of 1 is equal to 20. Values of 2 is equal to 30. And values of 3 is equal to 40. Values of 4 is equal to 50. Or I can put some string into it. I can put some Boolean into it. And see, array size is how much? 2. And you are storing how many values into it? 5 values. Your technologies will throw an error, index out of range. But here it will not. It can print all of them. That means what you know about array is not true about array. What you know about array is only about the array in your technology. You globally don't know about array. Your technology, how it uses array, you know in that way. But arrays behavior is more than what you think about it. Right? Arrays have all the behaviors. So technologies, because of their restrictions, they have restricted arrays. But it is not everywhere. Now the question here is, I hope it is clear, then what is the main purpose of array? Is the purpose of array to store same type of values? No, the purpose of array is to reduce overhead. How you can reduce overhead? By storing values in a sequential order. How you can reduce complexity? By storing many values under one name. By storing many values under one name, you can reduce complexity. But the main concept is reducing overhead. Now the question, why it is called array? Why this is called array? What is the meaning of array? Array word meaning. What is the meaning of array? What does array means? Let's see one basic thing here. Actually, we have, suppose, see, we have a queue. We have a queue. I'm just giving one point here. We have a queue. Now what happens is, you went to some bank tokens, bank counter, and they said that form a queue. That means they asked you to form a queue. Anywhere they asked you to form a queue. Queue means what? They asked you to form a queue means stand in one line. Am I right? And how they will call you now? How they will call you? The first person comes in. He is the person who goes out. Am I right? First in, first out. That is how queue is called. Okay. What about stack? Stack. Stack is nothing but last in, first out. You are standing in a queue. Am I right? Then stack means last in will be first out. Am I right? That is stack. Actually, what is array? Array is nothing but actually 1, 2, 3, 4. You stand in a queue. That means order. But we can call you in random order. We can call you in random order. That means we can call 4 first. We can call 2 second. Understood? We can call you in a random way. You are in order, but we will call you randomly. We will pick you. Then this is called array. So array is a sequence which allows you to access in a random way. Array is a sequence which allows you to access in a random way. Allows you to access in random way. That is what actually the concept of array. For example, I will tell one simple real example here. Suppose we have these 6 people are there. So, and what happened is, first person, suppose this is some interview. First person interview time is 5:40 p.m. Second person interview time is 5:10 p.m. Third person interview time is suppose 7 p.m. like this. And fourth person interview is 3:40 p.m. Like this, different times are there. So these are the interview times. Now what happened is you went suppose 5:30 p.m. like this. You went, your interview time is 7. You went at 5 o'clock. That means they will say that, okay, sit in the line. Already some people are there. You are in the second place in the line. Will they call them second? No, they will call only when your time comes. That means randomly they will pick you. Even you sit in a line, we will not access you in line. This is called array. Array. That means you might have very few times listened about this in general concepts. For example, you know piano. In piano, keys are present, na? Actually, technically, we say that those keys are array keys. Piano keys are array keys. Why? Because do I need to play them in order? But they are in order. Understood? They are in order. Do I need to key them in order? No. You can pull anywhere, anything out. Like you have a typewriter keys. You have keyboard keys. Keyboard keys, typewriter keys, all are arrays. Understood? Your keyboard is best example. Keyboard is an array. Keyboard is an example of an array. After A, S, D, F, G. Will you type in the same order? No. You randomly access anything anywhere, but they are in order. Keyboard is an array. Right? Array means a collection in sequential order, but not accessed in the same sequence. That is the concept of array. And one greatest speciality about TypeScript, TypeScript array can behave according to your technology. If you are using TypeScript for .NET, according to that, it can store similar types. If you are using TypeScript for Python, other combinations, where array type can be different types, it can handle. JavaScript, array is not same type, different type, TypeScript can handle. So TypeScript arrays can have all the behaviors. TypeScript array size can change dynamically. So that is the main concept of array. I hope everyone understood. The purpose of array is to reduce overhead and to reduce complexity. And the meaning of array is arrange in order but access in random. You arrange in order but access in random. That is the main concept of array. Earlier we don't have arrays. Arrays started only after floppy CD hard disks. Before floppy CD hard disk, arrays were not much used or not there in computer program. When these electronic disks came, then the arrays concept started. Because earlier we don't have a problem because everything is in sequential order. Tapes, magnet tapes, even computer uses magnet tapes earlier, right? This is important. Now the question, how do we define array? That means configuring array. Configuring array. How to configure array? How to configure the array? Simple. Actually in TypeScript, to configure array, you have to define let and variable name, and here we have to define what data type you want. Data type is string, and it is a meta character, square brace. This is configuring array. That means now what this meta character indicates, actually this square brace is a meta character. We call it as a meta character. Character, it indicates range of values. Understood? It indicates range of values. A range of values are defined using square brace. In computer technologies, square brace represents a meta character range. It defines range of values. Now, suppose this is what type of values? Similar type na? I told you that TypeScript will allow to handle different types. You can create any type array. Understood? Now it will allow to store string, numbers, booleans, anything you want. If you say string, it will be only string. If you say number, it will be only number. If you want any type, then you just mention as any type. Configuring array, that means here, this is similar type. This is different types. Your array can behave in both ways now. That means if you want, you can restrict array for same types. If you don't want, you can design array to handle different types. But remember, this is only configuring array. It is not done. Configuring array is not enough. You can't store data into array. So remember, configuring array is not enough. Data cannot be stored into initialize memory. You have to assign or initialize memory. Configuring array is not enough. To store data into array, we have to initialize or assign memory. How you can assign memory? That means here important, memory can be initialized or assigned for array by using two techniques. We have two techniques. One is meta character, another one by using array constructor. Another one meta character. That means you can see here, so let some I say categories is a string type array. It's not enough. That means you can't store anything into it. For that, you have to initialize memory. You have to initialize memory by using meta character, or you can do anything. This is initializing. Or what you have to do, after declaring, we have to say categories is equal to this. This is what? Assigning memory. You can initialize memory or you can assign. Without initializing, assigning memory, you can't store anything. You cannot store anything. This is what? Configuring, and this is what? Assigning. Understood? These are two options. Configure array, assign memory for array. Assigning what? Assigning memory. There is another technique. So that means you can initialize directly. That is let categories is what type? String type, and this is initialization of what? Memory. You can initialize memory. Now there is another technique here. The another technique is here we can define let categories. Categories what type? String type. Categories string type, and categories is equal to new array. Categories is equal to new array. That means new is memory allocating operator. New is called dynamic memory allocating operator. It allocates memory dynamically. For what kind? For what type? Array type. For array type, it is allocating memory. New is memory allocation operator. We call new as memory allocating operator. It allocates the memory and it will allow to store data into it. There is another option. LET categories is what type? String type, and is equal to new array. This is what? Initialization. You can assign or you can initialize. Now obviously in all interviews they ask what is difference between meta character and array constructor. What is the difference between meta character and array constructor? That means memory is allocated like this. You see, we are allocating memory. LET categories. Categories what type? String type. It is an array is equal to this one. This is array string type. That means this is the categories defined here. Currently you can see it is showing, so TypeScript annotations, this is HTML. Yeah. LET categories. LET categories. What type? String type, array, and you can store values like this. You can allocate memory. Without allocating memory, you cannot store anything inside it. This is allocating memory. Now, in interviews, the question is, what is difference? Products is also a string type, and here new array. This is also allocating memory for array. What is difference between both? You can, almost all technologies have this facility, na? Almost all your technologies have both methods. You can use an array constructor or you can just use a meta character. What is difference? What is difference? Any idea? What is difference, anyone? Both values, memory is allocated in both state. What is difference between these two? Actually, the difference between these two, many times people think that this allows to define size. Array constructor is to define size. Am I right? But I showed you size can be changed also. Even you mention the size, I can store more values into it. That is not a point. Then what is the main point difference between them? Actually, the main difference between these two is generally means technical concept I will explain here. So the frequently asked question is, what is difference? What is difference between meta character and array constructor? Difference between a meta character and array constructor. Actually, the difference is meta character allows to initialize different types of values. Different types of values when data type is any. Understood? It will allow to initialize different types of values when data type is any. But array constructor will not allow different types of values even when the type is any. Even when the type is any. Even when the type is any, it will not allow. So what do you understood by this? Means to design an array always to take similar type, then use array constructor. To design an array to take various types, then you can go with meta character. But remember, array constructor in any stage, it will not allow to initialize different types of values. Remember this. So it will not allow array constructor, it will not allow different types of values to initialize, even when the type is any. Understood? I will prove that. I will show you that point here. That means it will not allow to do that. So I will show you that point here. Different types of values initialization. That means, see here. Currently data type is string, means you can store only string. Right? How to create an array to store different types of values? We have to mention data type as any. See what I am doing. I am giving any as data type. Okay. Then into that I am passing one 10, another one is true, another one is string. It is allowed. Okay. Now see, here also data type. Here also data type is what? Any. And here I am passing 10, after that true and a. And you can see this is not allowed. Understood? It is not allowed. Then what is data type allowed? Which data type allowed? Depends on first value type. Depends on first value type. If first value is string, all strings only. If first value is number, all number only. Depending on first value. That means I declared one array and I don't know what type of value comes. First value, which value comes, I need to fix the array only to that type. Then what you can do, you can declare by using array constructor. That means all should be what type? Here all should be number type only. 10, 20, 30. Understood? Suppose if my first type is string type, then all must be string. It will not allow number now. That means all must be string type. All must be string type. All must be string type. Then only it will allow. That means even you define data type as any, array constructor will not allow different types of values. Different types of values. Only same type of values. Different. And remember, this is related to only initialization. We are talking about only initialization, not assignment. Assignment is allowed. Assignment is allowed. Initialization not allowed. Assignment is allowed. That means, suppose you see now, I am not defining anything, but data type, I am not initializing now. How to assign? Products of 0 is equal to 10. Another products of 1 here is equal to string. It is okay now. Understood? Difference of array constructor and array meta character is about initialization, not about assignment. Initialization of value. Initialization means at the time of allocating memory, what values you are passing. Only initialization, because tomorrow you will come with this doubt. Sir, you said in array constructor we cannot store different types, and you will get with this syntax and say it is working. Right? We talked about only initialization, not about assignment. You can assign different types of values. If data type is any, you can assign different types of values. If data type is string, then all must be string only. If data type is any, you can assign any types. You can assign any type, but you cannot initialize any type. Understood? You cannot initialize any type. It is not allowed. It is, you cannot initialize. You can assign. That means this definition is about only initialize. What about this meta character? It will allow both assignment as well as initialization. So if you want to create an array to handle any type of value, initialized or assigned, better go with meta characters. And its data type must be any. Of course, if you mention string type, it will restrict to string type. So here the point, how you can define. So you can configure. So syntactically difference is this. Syntax, suppose let categories is any type, and into that 10 and a and true. So this is okay. This is valid. Understood? This is valid. There is no problem. And you say let categories any type and is equal to new array constructor. In that we have 10 and this a, and this will be invalid. This will be invalid. Invalid. So why invalid? Because only numeric now. How you say only numeric? Based on first value. Whatever the first value is there, based on that. That is how you configure arrays. That means defining an array and configuring an array. Now, once you know how to define and configure, we will see how to manipulate arrays, working with arrays. That means adding elements, removing elements, reading elements into array, how it is done. This is very, very major, because everywhere data in web technologies comes in the form of array only. That means anywhere you have to work with services, APIs, data comes to you in the form of arrays and objects. So you need to be very strong in handling arrays and objects, because your entire work in Angular or any web technology will be arrays. In the front end, we are dealing with arrays only. That's the reason you need to be strong in this, right? Now, what are the various methods of arrays? How to handle them? That we will see in next session. Tomorrow we will do that. I hope you are clear with this. Right? Tomorrow we will discuss some examples. How to create array, store values, how to read, add, remove, all the manipulation with arrays. Tomorrow we'll continue. Okay? Right.